and welcome to The Strangest Gig, nominated Best Music Podcast by the Dallas Observer. Pretty cool. It's the podcast where we hear all the true tales about the weird, wild, strange, terrible, and or amazing gigs we have to take in order to make it as freelance and gigging musicians. I'm your host, Chris J. Norwood. On the podcast with us today is Marc Solomon and Amy Curnow. Marc and Amy's band is called the Charming Gardeners. They also run the music school Zounds Sounds here in Dallas. They had a lot of fun stories, so let's jump right in. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you. You out there listening to this. As I said in the open, we were nominated Best Music Podcast by the Dallas Observer, and it's all thanks to you. I greatly appreciate your support. And if you want to tell a friend, I'd also appreciate that. It's helped spread the good word about the Strangest Gig podcast. We've got a lot of fun stuff and a lot of good goals for next year, and we need your support, and I appreciate it. Also, if you're a fan of my music, if you're a fan of my new band, Chris J. Norwood and the Knockdown Dragout, we got a lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff coming up. This week, our first official single, title track from the album, comes out November 17th. Please be sure to check that out on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you get good music. Be sure to favorite us, heart us, like us, whatever it is on Spotify. That really goes a long way to helping us get some good playlist placements and that sort of thing. And then here's an exclusive. On November 15th, we are announcing a release show that will be February 9th at the glorious Kessler Theater in Oak Cliff, best venue in Dallas. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Please be sure to get your tickets. Come out and support the band. Come see us. It's going to be one hell of a night. The Rosemont Kings are going to be playing. Kirk Thurman's going to be playing. And then Chris J. Norwood and the Knockdown Dragout will be celebrating the release of our debut album, February 9th at the Kessler. Now, Marc Solomon and Amy Curnow have been playing in Dallas bands for a long time. You may recognize them from the Charming Gardeners, Shanghai Five, a whole host of other bands. They have also been teaching the next generation of great rock musicians with their music school, Zounds Sounds. Zounds Sounds has an anniversary coming up, and we get into that a little bit. As well as some other really great stories, including one involving the late Rick James. So here we go. Cool. Well, Marc, Amy, thank y'all so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Hi.
This will be a lot of fun. Let's just jump right in if y'all are cool with it. Let's tell me about your current gig. I know y'all have got some things y'all are promoting, and you've got some fun stuff coming up. So let's talk about that, and then maybe we'll get into a little bit of your backstory, y'all's bio, that sort of thing.
Cool. Well, I'm Marc Solomon.
And I'm Amy Curnow.
And we own the Zounds Sounds School of Music. And we have been teaching people how to play music for 18 years. And we have a band called the Charming Gardeners. And we're also a couple and have a cool little daughter named Bixby.
That's cool.
So
I love that name. I love it. It's such a cute name.
That's what we got going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our little life in a nutshell.
That's your life, yeah.
So that's what's going. That's what drives everything. Those things. But so right now we have in the last year we finally opened up a new studio because during the pandemic we closed down our studio. And
did y'all have to close down completely?
No, we actually were very fortunate during the pandemic.
Could you
we were also very diligent.
Yeah.
You know, we were and our
that's our life.
Yeah.
Our livelihood. So
and
we had
we
to
work with
pivot.
families, you know, and so it worked on two levels really where you know the parents didn't want their kids giving things up because there was hardly anything to do.
They didn't want them just sitting at home doing nothing.
Right. And then they were also super, you know, empathetic to our situation because everybody was like, you know, they didn't want to cut off. They knew it was our money line. They knew it's how we made money and stuff like that. And so as we figured out how to do it, you know, first Amy was like, I don't know, I'm gonna teach singing, you know, virtually. And I was like, well, nobody's leaving. So
that's the plus.
We gotta figure it
so
out.
we got to figure it out. You know, and it actually went great. It went really well and as smooth as could be expected.
Mm-hmm.
there was
My
an
wife-
element to life slowing down I kind of liked, but
Yeah.
but there was no point in keeping our studio on Garland Road.
Yeah, I'm paying rent and all that shit.
Yeah,
we couldn't
and
use
our
the
landlord
space.
was super cool. Like I called him the day before the pandemic when we knew everything was going
Mm-hmm.
to shut down the next day.
Right,
Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it was March 13th or
Gosh.
something, March 12th or something like that. And I remember calling him that day before. I'm like, "We'll go move right now because we're not gonna be in business. We work
Yeah.
with kids, you know." And he was just like, "Ah." And he
Oh,
was
man,
real
that's
cool.
great.
And then we got through into the summer, and it was finally like, okay. And so we moved everything out of our studio, and like for 2 years, basically, our house was everything. And then as things opened up, we moved the business into the backyard. It was super cool. We had like bands playing in our backyard all the
Fun.
time. Our neighbors
Yeah.
They
were
were
awesome.
really cool about it for a while.
My
for a
wife
while.
taught piano for a long time. She started right before the pandemic, and so just like you said, trying to teach
Virtually.
anything virtually
Yeah.
is so tough, let alone a musical instrument, which is so tactile.
Yeah, and we lost the whole you couldn't play with them anymore,
Right, yeah.
which that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
but
and
we-
especially to y'all's model, which is so like collaboratively
Yes, it
based.
is.
It's all about the playing together.
yeah. So, but we came through it nicely, and then we had friends out there in the creative world who had spaces that they were struggling with what to do with, and we needed to get out of the backyard, and
Yeah.
They kept calling the
and
cops.
so we went to Yam, Trey Johnson,
Yeah.
and Jen Johnson's yoga studio, and we were able to get the kids, 6 feet apart, and we all masked up and we rocked out. And we eventually found this black box theater, this great place called East Dallas Arts, still there, and they were a nonprofit, and looking for what to do with their space because they were unable to really use it, and so that was another place we worked. And then it was just like the school was blowing up, and then we had 15 kids get into Booker T 2 years ago.
Wow.
And that just created this like chain reaction and renaissance for the school. And
That's great.
we were still teaching out of the house at that point because we didn't have a studio and these black box thing. And then like one day I looked out in our yard and they were like, what would normally be our lobby? And it was just like all these kids sitting in
Hanging
our
out in the
front
front
yard
yard.
hanging out.
That's great.
And I was like, and I'd seen that, I knew what was happening, and I was like, we got to find
It's
a studio.
time, yeah.
We got to find a studio. And we found this place on Shoreview right across from Studio Arts. So it's got this really cool like art corridor over
Yeah.
in Lake Highlands, and it's just been wonderful. We
That's
got the
great.
whole building. We had neighbors for the first year, but they didn't love us.
For some reason, they didn't like us very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
They didn't like
So-
the loud.
Yeah, so and so we've been in this building for a year now, and we keep talking about doing a grand opening, but then we always knew we wanted to do this anniversary thing, like something to say, hey,
Yeah.
look at us, we've survived. And we really started talking about it before the pandemic
Oh, wow.
at 15 years.
Yeah.
And then we came out of it, and it was just like we moved in this building. I was like, things are really blowing
Yeah.
up. This would be the time
Now's
to
the
do
time.
it. We're 18 years old. It's perfect. Zounds Sounds, old enough to vote.
Right.
And so I started calling everybody.
Old enough to move out of your parents' house and
Right.
Yeah.
not go to college.
So
Instead.
I started calling like all the kids. You can't see me doing air quotes on a podcast, but and they're not kids anymore, and tons of them are like coming home, and we're putting on
That's
this
great.
big reunion show and at the Granada, and it's just a great way to like be like, hey, we're still here.
That's
Because we got a sign recently, which Zounds Sounds never really had a sign.
Yeah.
And it was like, and so people have been driving by and like, I went to Zounds Sounds. I'm so glad, that you're still there. I
That's
saw
great.
your sign,
How many kids have y'all counted up? How many kids y'all have actually have come
In the
through the
18
school?
Over the
years.
years?
Yeah.
No.
Too many to count.
And at one point, we had 2 locations and 14 teachers.
Yeah.
So, and it is all recorded actually.
Yeah,
But
somewhere.
but could you imagine being in a 14-piece band? Well,
Yeah.
you are in a soul band now, so. But yeah,
We got a lot of people in our band. Yeah, it's a
but
lot.
you know what I mean? It's like
It's also expensive, as you'll know.
it's like having
Yeah.
so, and that got pretty crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, so.
So what's the plan for the anniversary show? You've got kids that are coming back.
So
Kids that are 30.
30. Yeah,
Kids, yeah.
it's gonna open up like a normal Zound show, like the kids that are
Mm-hmm.
there now doing it, and so they'll open the show and it'll be kind of normal for the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll kind of be like the, I don't know, like the Taylor Hawkins tribute thing that the Foo Fighters did, or maybe
Yeah.
more like the Taylor Swift eras.
Perfect,
Because
yeah.
we're gonna just start going kind of back through the eras,
Zounds
of it,
Sounds
and
eras.
it's gonna get older, but we're also mixing in some of the new awesome talent
Yeah.
to play with the old people and stuff like that.
Alumni.
Alumni. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. But
Old people.
But some great people, and then teachers too, like Chris Holt and Chad Stockslager.
Oh, fun.
Both are part of it, and Eric Neal and Gerald Irigori and Brian Wakeland, but he's a current teacher, and
Okay,
Kaylee
yeah.
Wolf.
Kaylee
So that is like, you know, we're real fortunate that we kind of have Dallas royalty that's
Absolutely.
gone through their teaching, you know, and that we're all still real close and stuff
That's
like
great.
that. So there's that, but then like there's a kid named Max Garrell. He's pushing 30.
Yeah.
And he's doing really well in the jazz world. He plays with Arturo Sandoval, and he has a Max Garrell trio, and he also just did a solo jazz, or not, solo bass record produced by Stanley Clark.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's gonna do he's gonna be playing all night, but he's gonna play with his jazz. It's a fusion.
Yeah.
But I think he said it was a trio that was gonna play.
Okay. Does he play bass? He plays bass for Arturo Sandoval?
Yeah. And then a couple of
That's
the guys from Acid Carousel, which is not together anymore,
Right.
but John and Gus, they're supposed to be here, but I don't really know what they're doing. And in a lot of cases too, when I've been like, hey, bring your band, people have been like, I really want to go Zounds Sounds. I just want to come back and work up tunes with like people that I used to play with when I was a kid, or that I never got to play with because they were older than me. Really cool stuff like that. So
that's super
there's
cool.
an element of the show that we're not totally sure what's going down yet. So,
We're still working on
you
all
know,
that.
because everybody, they're gonna get here like that weekend prior, and we're gonna. Everybody's coming to Zounds.
Work it out. That'll be fun.
And that's really one of the most exciting parts of the reunion. That's where a lot of the reunion is going to happen.
Sure,
you
yeah.
know? And then the gig's going to be like the party.
And when is it? Friday?
No, it's the
Tuesday.
Tuesday
Okay.
prior to Thanksgiving.
Tuesday.
November
prior to
21st.
You know, because that way, because we have a lot of people coming in
Coming
from
home
out of
for
town,
Thanksgiving.
so we
Perfect,
wanted to
yeah.
make it like, you know, they're coming home, they can hang with their families
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
That'll be great.
It's going to be amazing.
Well, cool.
You're on the list.
Oh, well, great. Man, yeah, I'll definitely be there. If I can, yeah. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. It's
Such an eclectic mix. Like
It
we're
is,
actually
yeah.
gonna have a couple people singing opera, you know, some
That's
country,
cool, yeah.
some jazz, you know, just
Yeah.
all different.
a lot
kinds
of people that are songwriters and don't have a band or can't bring their band. So like we're gonna have this house band that's gonna have, you know, the basic core will be people that live in Dallas so we can get it rehearsed.
Yeah.
But then there's gonna be people floating in and out of it that live other places and,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
We
And
have
then
some-
those singers will change out.
Right.
And then there's a couple bands that are gonna
That'll
be
come into picture.
playing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be
That's so cool.
real cool. And I really wanted to go scoreboard, you know, like a lot of them there was very little ego involved.
Yeah.
And when I was like, I want you to play your stuff, they'd be like, oh, so we're not gonna like play like a Van Halen song or
Yeah.
something. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, we could.
We can.
But I really want you to kind of show off, you know.
Sure.
It's like it's amazing
what you're
all the
doing now.
music that's come out of our place.
Yeah.
And that's
I mean, there's a
that's what I'm
direct
so
line
proud of.
from their success to what y'all instilled in them from the beginning. So that's
Yeah, I was telling Maureen the other day that, you know, I've been like living in goosebumps, you know, just, like talking to them and stuff like that. There's also been some really manic-y moments through it all, like,
Yeah.
you know, finding out like there's this one kiddo who like really, you could practically say helped me build the business because people heard about him, you know, and his name's Ben Littlejohn, and he plays bass for Howdy, and he's a producer. And he's been real successful.
Yeah.
And he's just an awesome musician and a great dude. And he's in the middle of producing a record right now.
Super
and he just
busy.
can't
Yeah, you
make
just
it.
can't break away.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh. Yes. But other than that,
Yeah.
it's
He's super
real
busy
cool.
doing music.
Yeah, he's doing the
Yeah,
thing that
doing
he's set out to do.
Exactly what.
That's great. Well, let's talk about Charming Gardeners now. And how long have y'all been doing Charming Gardeners? And then is that how y'all met and got together, or
Well, you want to tell how we
We actually met because I was bartending in Deep Ellum and at Elm Street Bar, and one of my friends and regulars was Rob Schumacher, who was in Ghoul Town and some other bands, and he taught drums at Zounds, and he found out I had a master's degree in voice, and he was like,
He was in a bed with my wife at the time.
"Oh yeah, that's right too." And he was like, "Well, you need to come to Zounds Sounds because we're looking for a voice teacher. And you need to meet Marc Solomon." And so I went down there one day and happened to be during the day, and he was there, which is kind of rare, teaching. And so I walked in and met.
And the address.
The address was 1203, which is my birthday. So I was like,
it's kismet. Yeah, it's kismet.
the whole thing. So it was like kind of meant to be. I guess
She can teach you to do that, by the way.
That wasn't a great example. So we met then, and I ended up teaching for a little bit, and then I had to move away for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I moved to Oklahoma City for like 6 months and came back.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came back, the band I was singing in at the time was Shanghai Five, and we were doing stuff, so I was going back and forth all the time. And then I got asked to sing at a roller derby. I got asked to sing the national anthem at a roller derby thing. Because roller derby was really big at that time.
Yeah.
And so, Children of the Grave, a Zounds band, just happened to be
They
playing
are playing
there.
at the reunion.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they were playing at the, I don't know, halftime
The singer
or something.
is now Ava from Starfruit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Rob was big with that band too. He was the instructor of that band. And so then he saw that I was in town, and then he was like,
I had polyps. I had gotten polyps.
Yeah.
I had to quit teaching, quit singing, just quit making
Yeah.
noise. And so I saw her do that, and I was like, "Hey, you're back. I'm writing all this music, and I need somebody to sing. You want to sing?" And she was like, "Yeah." So that's where the band formed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "And we need a teacher again. If you're actually back, why don't you come teach at the school?" So over the course of the next, so that's about
2008 or something.
yeah, and that's when we started writing songs together and getting towards forming a band. And of course we did it with the teachers at Zounds.
Yeah.
And really it's still the same band that it was from the beginning, except for the bass player. And it's always been a Zounds teacher that was Zounds bass teacher has always been our bass player pretty much. And except for when Max Garrell sits in.
Yeah.
And so then where was I?
2010.
So
I think we
so
did our
basically
first recording.
did our first recording, and it was for the Zounds Sounds. So that's when we formed our charity, Way Into Music. So what we did is we made a record that the kids wrote.
Wow. Yeah.
They wrote their own tunes, and then we should have brought you one. I'll have to send it to you.
Oh yeah.
And then and then we went to all the teachers and said, "Hey, what you got? You got anything in the can, or you want to record something for the?" Because we had a little studio at Zounds, and we're gonna make a student and a teacher record, and we did that, and that's how we kind of got the charity, the first little fundraiser, to get it off the ground and stuff like that, and out of that, we formed our band. That was our first recording, and that was 2009 by the time that thing came out, and so really ever since then we've just been gigging and just
Playing
keeping
music
it going.
and teaching.
Playing music.
Yeah.
What's it like, performing with your spouse? My wife and I sing a lot together as well. It's equally fun and amazing, and also sometimes
Frustrating.
Yeah. You said it.
Rehearsal's a little more difficult.
Yes.
For sure. But gigs are
Gigs are
cool.
fun.
Yeah, we've been doing this for so long, and we were actually not romantically involved first, and so we
think
had
that
a
helps.
working
Yeah.
relationship before any of that ever happened,
Right.
and so it was like I don't know. It was not a thing.
And a lot, and like nobody, even when we became a thing, nobody knew for a long, long time.
Yeah.
You know, but it was, and plus we were all, you know, getting divorced and stuff like that. It was all weird. We didn't want to. Neither one of us were ready to get into relationships or anything like that. You know, but when it happened, it happened.
That's great.
and then the gigs got stranger.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
But so there's that, and yeah.
Well, then tell me, Amy, I tell me about your background in music and kind of how you got started. So I know the Curnow name because my wife was a band director.
Oh, okay.
And I was in band all the way through. And I know your dad, James Curnow, I played a million of his pieces.
That's my dad. Yeah. It's Curnow, by the way.
Curnow. Sorry.
That's okay. I've been doing that my whole life. You know,
I'm sure,
we've been doing that forever. So, but it's, you don't pronounce the W, so just FYI.
Curnow.
Yeah. So, yeah, my dad's a composer. He has written thousands of pieces, probably. You know, if you go to the UIL prescribed list, his name comes up. He had a publishing company for a long time and stuff, too. So I was basically born into it.
Yeah.
I call him Mick Jagger for band geeks.
He absolutely is, yeah.
So that's fun.
I'd never heard of him.
Yeah.
That's fun because, you know, when you the people that do know who he is, they're like kind of in awe of him. But
Sure.
He's my dad. So but he's super sweet and humble, and you know, that's one of the things he really instilled in me as he knew that I was going into music from a young age. I mean, they knew I could match pitch when I was like 18 months old. So.
Right.
And then he started me in piano and all that stuff. But he was always said, be humble and easy to work with. And that's him to a T too, you know.
So was there ever a thought for you to go kind of that band route, or was that never really?
Well, I feel like I didn't really have much of a choice, but you know, I was playing trumpet like in 3rd grade.
Right.
And so I played trumpet all the way, and cornet also.
Yeah.
Your Salvation Army.
I grew up going to the Salvation Army as my church, and so we had a band in our church as well, and so I was playing trumpet all the time. But we are also very involved in choir and things like that. So I was singing the whole way through, always singing, and I just didn't love playing trumpet. And so when I decided to go to college for voice, they were like, you can't play trumpet and do this at the same time because it's basically the antithesis of everything you're doing as a singer is trying to relax all the face muscles and muscles in your throat. It's like the antithesis of that is trumpet because you're tensing everything up for that.
I played. That's what I played was trumpet all through college.
Yeah, so you know.
Yeah.
Right, and so I was like, oh yay, thanks, I can finally quit.
It gave me good reason.
Yeah, so that's that, and so I ended up going to college and I got my bachelor's and master's in voice, and didn't really want to do opera.
Yeah.
After all of that, I just wanted to keep studying my craft, really.
Yeah.
And I was singing in bands the whole time as well. And just getting performance, you know.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, everything I was doing was getting me ready for just performing all the time.
This,
all different kinds of music as well, but really opera heavy and classical music heavy all through college and grad school. And then when I finished grad school, I moved this way and ended up. That's when I started bartending and waiting tables and stuff and then singing and finding my way in the music scene here in Dallas too, and meeting people like Bill Longhorse and Greg Prickett.
Right.
Bill Longhorse was in 66 and all kinds of stuff.
I wasn't here when.
Yeah.
That was when I was gone.
Yeah, you're getting back around that same time too.
Yeah, well, Marc, tell us about your kind of background, how you kind of got started in music and.
I grew up mostly here in Dallas.
Yeah.
Although when I was a little kid, I was in New York, and so. So the Tom Jones show, that was big.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was the big this is all I ever wanted to do.
Right.
That was ever it. I thought I could grow up and be Tom Jones. So.
Yeah.
And then from there, whatever, the Osmond Brothers, Kiss, Van Halen, I had that kind of New York vibe, and we moved to Texas, and I was just a little rock and roll rat.
Yeah.
And I went to Booker T, and
what were your years there?
82 to 86.
Okay.
and then I you know, it was the time of like, you know, Eddie Van Halen and all these virtuoso hot shit guitar players and stuff, and I wanted to be that, but I always made up catchy songs like that was, you know, and that's why I liked Van Halen so much, because even though he was like total shredder dude, it's like they ultimately just had great songs. And so I went to Booker T. Pretty much learned everything I knew musically, you know, I know musically, you know, as far as being educated in a classroom setting was there.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I didn't go to college, and I just went to work playing music. You know, booked a tour for the band I was in. I was in a band called Zane Grey, which was kind of this weird sort of like, almost like, I'm a really big baseball fan, so like it's a great day.
So it's a good day.
You know, so
we're all of us.
It was kind of like this. I always saw it as like minor league, you know, double A.
Yeah.
And it was like maybe triple A, but they the people that went through that band was like the guys that the guy that was the singer songwriter guy is this guy named Chris Lindsay, and he is now a Nashville songwriter. He's married to the lady. He's written some really successful songs, but he's married to the lady too that wrote that Jesus Take the Wheel, which there's a great thing on songwriting about all the different people that take credit for writing that song. But anyway, he's a super successful songwriter, and he was a lot older than me, and he took me under his wing, and that was super cool. And then like the guys from 10 Hands were in that band.
Yeah.
They were on Star Search before I was in the band. So it was like real weird getting in this band, but you know, a really great learning experience. And then, like I said, they were a lot older, and then that band broke up, and it was like, okay, it's time to move to Austin, because that's what you do.
That's what you do.
You know, and then I moved to Austin. I formed this band called the Clowns, and it was fun. It was really the day of kind of like, you know, the jam bands and stuff. So like Dallas was not the spot for me, and I wanted to rock. And but I got there, and you know, we found our niche. It was cool. But even after a while, you know, it was kind of like, okay, do people do straight ahead rock and roll? We were very much in that kind of Midwestern-y kind of vibe. I was pretty influenced by the Replacements and that whole Minneapolis sound. And then so basically, you know, one day we're playing a gig. Oh, this was a kind of a strange gig, I guess. We're playing a gig at the Continental Club, and this guy walks over to me, and he said, "Hey, my name's Eddie." And I'm like, "Eddie Munoz from the Plimsolls?" And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I love your band. Can I join your band?"
Wow.
And I was like, and I loved the Plimsolls. Yeah. And I was just like, "Yeah, sure." So that's awesome. So like the next day, Eddie Munoz was in our band.
Wow, that's great.
And he convinced us, after a few months, that we needed to move to LA. That we were in the wrong spot. And he wanted to go back to LA. And he was like, and you know, now that I'm in this band, you know, we should go there. Yeah. And we moved there. He actually didn't stay in our band once we got there. It was kind of funny. But when I got there, the Clowns stayed around for a while, and we eventually broke up. And at that time, like, I started crossing paths with Tommy Stinson a lot. Yeah. And that was weird, because they were kind of my favorite band, you know. And the next thing I knew, I had become good buddies with Brian Baker, and Brian was he was in like Minor Threat. Yeah. And so, and he kind of really started like introducing me to the cool crowd. Yeah. You know, and so he introduced me to Tommy, and that's how we wound up meeting. And he actually, we both tried out for, I tried out for Bash and Pop, and then he decided that he would take the gig, like not in an ugly way or whatever, you know, just like pedigree and whatever. Sure. And then so, but he kind of championed me. So like, you know, it was a real cool thing. So it was like, oh, Brian Baker says we should call you. And so that's kind of how my career sort of, and then Brian left Bash and Pop to join, who's he, Bad Religion. Yeah. And then Tommy was just like, hey, you want to form a band? And he broke up Bash and Pop and was like, let's just form a new band. And so then, you know, I spent the next couple of years in a band with Tommy Stinson. We were called Perfect. And that, you know, by and large, being in a band with a replacement. It makes for some strange gigs.
Absolutely. Let's get into some of those. Tell me about the strangest gig you've ever played, either together, apart, with Zounds Sounds, whatever that means to y'all.
Well, it works, I guess, on different levels. I mean, we were talking about that, like, oh, you know, I'm sure as people do, you know, what are we going to talk about when we get there? And I was saying, you know, in the spirit of, like, you know, what Johnny Carson used to say about, you know, never perform with kids and animals. Is that a Johnny Carson thing? I think it is, you know, because you just don't know where it's going. You can't control it.
Oh,
so being that our gigs are based off of kids, they can be pretty nutty, you know. And it's funny because, like, I can't think of, like, this one, well, sort of, there's, like, but one particular day where everything was just, but it's just, like, it's always, I mean, they're musicians, first of all, just on that level. Yeah. It's a music show, so it can go, anything could happen. But then you're dealing with kids, and, like, we've had situations where, I guess a kid just, like, didn't want to play, like, just dropped out.
Just refused.
Oftentimes, the problems, so to speak, the strangeness that arise is with the parents. Yeah. You know?
Do you get a lot of, like, you know, theater moms that are front row, mouthing every word and that sort of thing?
More the dancing.
More the inappropriate dancing.
Gotcha. Okay.
You'd be surprised. At, and in fact, you could even say that one of our last shows is a fine example of what can happen. But we had a gig for the kids in the spring at 3 Links. And we do most of the shows over the last several years at Lee Harvey's. Okay. And and there in and of itself is, like,
there's always something strange going on there.
The day we book a gig, if you can count on, it's gonna rain.
Oh, of course.
It's gonna rain. Yeah. If we book a gig there, it's gonna happen. And everybody gets all and I'm always, like, real chill and just like, just wait.
It'll be fine.
We're gonna be fine. We're gonna have we're gonna have a show. Yeah. You know? So that, like, always happens. If I book us a gig outside, it's going to rain. But you know, then there's, like, the what happened at 3 Links is we booked the show, and they had done some stuff with other music schools. Yeah. And you know, it was a very tame, lame crowd. Sure. You know, and so the Zounds show that happened in April, you know, we had the whole thing going, and they prepared based on what they thought it would be. Was
this going to be like an afternoon show or evening?
It was. It was after 2 to 6 in the afternoon, something like that. And they opened the doors at 2:00, and by 2:15. The place is totally packed. Yeah. Or, you know, it was like, the show hadn't even, just started, I guess. And there was a line down the block, and Evan, the general manager guy, comes up to me, and he's just like, Marc, I'm sorry, I did not realize what was, you know, he's like, there's a line down the block, and there's these parents, they want to see their kid. They're pissed. And he was like, they weren't pissed. He was afraid it was going to go bad, you know? And it was just, like, packed, you know, just packed in. And it was just like, and we hadn't done a show in Deep Ellum in years. Yeah. And it was just like, it was pretty strange, and smells were wafting around. Of course, you know, we're back in Deep Ellum now, and it's just like, and there's just all the Deep Ellum, like, nervous tension. You know, everybody's like, oh, we're going to Deep Ellum, it's dangerous, and it was just like, but it was this really killer family energy,
such a good vibe,
but in a rock and roll thing,
which is perfect for Deep Ellum.
He had one bartender, and he was like, I didn't know your crowd drank. He's like, I came in to bar back. He's like, and we are so in the weeds. And I was like, well, what happened at the front door? He's like, they threw up the overhead door, and it was just like out into the street, and it was just like,
that's beautiful.
I just got up on stage and was like, ain't no party like a Zounds Sounds party. Right. And the crowd just went crazy.
So that's what people can expect at Granada.
Hopefully. Okay, so just gigs I've had. So one time I was playing a gig at Raji's in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it was my band. It was still the Clowns. It was still the Clowns. And we were getting ready to play. I look down the bar, and it's Rick James. And
Is he looking pretty fly? It's Rick James, so I assume.
James, yeah. I mean, he looked like
he looked like Rick James.
That's Rick James. Yeah. It was Rick James. Not on stage. It was Rick James out on a Friday night.
Okay, yeah.
So it's
I don't still know good,
but
but not stage James.
And so he's hanging, and we're like, I think we're like the last band on the bill, and he's drinking, and finally I hear the bartender say, I can't give him another drink until he pays for picks up his tab, and the promoter, who was this kind of famous, kitschy famous promoter from Texas, I think her name was Tequila Mockingbird, and and she was like, I got it, and so she like is paying for his drinks and whatever, and then she comes over to me, and she had booked the show, and she comes over to me, she's like, could Rick play with y'all?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, really? she was like, yeah, he's dying to play. Can he play with you? And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, but let us get up there and kind of get our thing going, and we'll bring him up. She's like, okay. And he's just at the bar, he's just getting lit. And so I go to my band members, I'm like, hey, so Rick James is going to play with us. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, Rick James is going to play with us. And we're all getting kind of fueled up. We're the last band on the bill.
Yeah, you've been there a while.
I'm 25 years old. I'm getting ready to play with Rick James, and one of my really dear friends was in the audience who was like the biggest Rick James fan, for real. Like knew the deep cuts, and so sure enough, we get on stage, I'm getting plugged in, and I turn around. And Rick James is right here, and I'm like, "Hey,
hey, Rick James."
And he's like, "Hey, so what are we gonna do?" Blah blah blah. He's like, and I'm like, "Well, we're gonna get up there, and we're gonna like, just let us play like a few songs at least, and then you come up, and we'll, let's get our groove on." And he's like, "Okay, cool." And then turn around, do whatever I had to do, turn around again, and he's like still standing there, and I'm like, "Oh man!" And he, like I said, he was pretty lit. And so we were sitting there just trying to get started, and he was like, so how about let's just do blues. And I was like, and then the Tequila Mockingbird lady walks up to the mic, ladies and gentlemen, will you welcome with the Clowns,
oh no,
Rick James. And we're just like, oh man. And so he was like, do a blues. Now, mind you, we're kind of like we're in the Replacements vein. We're like, very aggressive in our pop approach.
Right.
And it was just like, okay,
so,
this is weird.
So you don't often call blues on the actual set.
It's like, but, we were all good musicians.
Yeah.
We knew how to play the blues, but it was just like, oh, this is a vibe suck, and it was just like, when we kicked in this blues and like this really slow blues, and it was just like, oh, how do we make this go anywhere? And like, we start to just groove behind him and stuff, and blah blah blah, and then he's like kind of conducting us, break it down. It's like, oh, we're fucking up here with James Brown. Oh no, and it's just like, but it's Rick James.
Yeah,
and I look over at my best friend, who like loves Rick James, and he's like, you can't see that on a podcast, but I just gave like this really sad no look face. But it was just like, and he was just, I was like, this is the bummer, right? You should be up here, buddy. And then finally I just was like, and we couldn't get out of it.
Yeah,
like we couldn't like,
it just,
like how do we stop this? And so finally,
and then when you do get him off stage, how do you recover the set?
I totally like handed him my guitar. So now my band members are like, no, you know, and I was like, I'll go get drinks. You know, it's like I just walk over to the bar and get drinks for everybody.
Have fun.
And he's just like, and he hands me back the guitar, and we pep it up a little bit. We have, we try to make the best of it, but it was just really mostly was trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then like he was just like afterward, like so thankful and
That's
sweet.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, I hadn't done that in so long, and that was so great, and thank you so much. And I was like, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
It was like,
so
but I felt great about that, but it was also kind of like, all right, now we got to figure out like how to make a set out of, like how do you continue? What do we do now? What do we do? And then I went home that night after the gig, and that was like probably a Saturday night. So really, it probably wasn't till like the next Monday, and that was the day his trial started.
Oh no.
So basically it was his last party night.
Yeah.
Before the shit hit the fan.
Yeah. Oh no.
And
I'm glad you were able to get that to him.
Right?
Well, tell me about y'all's dream gig. And that can mean whatever it means to you. Dream venue, dream bill.
Oh my.
I guess I'd like to play with Tom Jones.
Tom Jones,
play guitar with Tom Jones.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. I guess
That's hard.
I guess I applied for it one time.
Mm-hmm.
But Tommy was on tour, he was on tour with Guns N' Roses.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just finishing up with Guns N' Roses. He had just become really good buddies with Rhett Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And so like so Guns N' Roses were in town. The old 97s were here working on the new record. All the worlds collide. I'm friends with Rhett too. Rhett's in fact done like a songwriting workshop with Zounds Sounds before and stuff. And so we're in the car going somewhere, going to a bar or something, and we're all in the car. And Tommy goes, so I got a call from Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I heard a rumor. And he goes, yeah, we're going to do it. And I was like, you need a guitar player? I said, because
I happen to know.
And I kind of felt like I turned in an application, but it was basically Paul. It was Tommy was put in the best band Paul ever had.
Yeah.
And it was great. I loved it. As a fan, I loved it. But
Yeah.
I was totally like, so I guess that would have been
a dream one.
That would have been my
That's
dream
fun.
gig, like to play with those guys.
That's awesome. Well, Marc and Amy, thank you all so much
Thank you.
for coming on the
having
pod.
us.
This has been so much fun. So the Zounds Sounds reunion show is Tuesday, November 21st.
At the Granada.
At the Granada
Granada.
at 5 o'clock. Tickets went on sale yesterday.
All right. So how else can people find out about y'all? Where can they go online? Do y'all have socials or those
All
sorts
that.
of things? All that good
Yep,
stuff.
we're on Facebook and Instagram, and
Our website.
we have a website, Zounds Sounds. CharmingGardenersMusic.com is the other one, and all sorts of pages on Facebook.
All the pages.
For every band we've ever been in and stuff like that.
Thank y'all so much. This
Thank
has been
you.
a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yep. All right, there they go. As the husband of a music educator, I have so much respect for what they do at Zounds Sounds. They're doing some really great work. So y'all, please go support them. Go to the Zounds Sounds anniversary show at the Granada. Go to a Charming Gardeners show. Yeah, and just go check out what they do. They're doing some great work. And just as a reminder, November 15th, we announced the release show for Chris J. Norwood and the Knockdown Dragouts debut album. That show will be February 9th at the Kessler Theater. Please go get your tickets and come see us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Then Friday, November 17th, the title track from our album comes out. Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you get good music. Please check it out. Give it a listen. Give it 1 million listens. Help us get over that 1,000 mark so that we can start getting a little bit of royalties from Spotify. That'd be really great. And until next time, if you find yourself on stage with a lit Rick James, just remember, a gig's a gig, right?